A.R. Rahman, Oscar winner, the Mozart of Madras, celebrated overwhelmingly by Hindu audiences, recently called Chhaava, the film he scored divisive. He said it cashed in on divisiveness.
Really honest with
It
you?
is divisive. I think it cashed on divisiveness, but I think the core of it is to show the bravery because the director, I told him, like, why do you need me for this? He said, we need only you for this.
The film depicts Maratha warrior king Sambhaji Maharaj's conflict with Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb. It shows Aurangzeb's brutality, his religious persecution, his torture and execution of Sambhaji, his political agenda of forced conversion. Rahman, a Muslim, scored this film, then called it divisive. And here's my question: why is showing historical truth divisive? Why is depicting what actually happened to Maratha people, torture, execution, religious persecution, considered cashing in on divisiveness? If Muslims can feel offended by seeing Mughal invaders depicted badly in films, can't Hindus and Marathas feel offended by a celebrated artist they have supported for decades, dismissing their ancestors' suffering as divisive content? Let me be absolutely clear. Showing Aurangzeb or any Mughal invader as cruel doesn't make all Muslims now bad, but calling films that show this historical truth divisive does something worse. It erases the suffering of those who actually lived through it. Chhaava depicts Sambhaji Maharaj's conflict with Aurangzeb. Let's establish what actually happened. Aurangzeb reimposed the jizya tax specifically on non-Muslims, a discriminatory policy explicitly based on religion. He ordered the destruction of Hindu temples including Kashi Vishwanath and Somnath. He executed Sikh Guru Tegh Bahadur for refusing to convert to Islam. He captured Sambhaji Maharaj, tortured him for 40 days, gouged out his eyes, cut out his tongue, and executed him. These aren't anti-Muslim narratives. These are documented historical facts from contemporaneous sources including Mughal court historians. Aurangzeb's political agenda was conversion. He used religion as justification for political conquest and consolidation of power. When his forces committed violence, they did so invoking religious authority. Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, because that's how religious political conquest worked. Is depicting this divisive or is it simply history? We don't avoid showing the Crusades because it might offend Christians. We don't sanitize the Inquisition because Catholics still exist. We depict historical violence committed in religion's name because it happened. Why should Aurangzeb be any different? When Rahman calls Chhaava divisive, what is he actually saying? That showing Aurangzeb's cruelty divides communities, but the cruelty itself divided communities. That was its purpose. Depicting it doesn't create division. It acknowledges historical division. That the film cashes in on communal tensions, but those tensions have historical roots. Marathas remember what was done to their ancestors. That memory isn't cashing in. It's acknowledging trauma. Here's what divisive really means in this context. You are not supposed to talk about this. You are not supposed to show that Aurangzeb did because it might make present day Muslim uncomfortable. You are not supposed to depict religious persecution because acknowledging it could create communal harmony problems. But whose harmony? Harmony built on erasing historical suffering isn't harmony. It's enforced amnesia. The Marathi people whose ancestors were tortured and killed don't get to see their history depicted because it might be divisive. Their suffering must be minimized so others aren't uncomfortable. That's not historical responsibility. That's historical erasure. Here's where it gets infuriating. If a Muslim filmmaker made a film depicting Muslim suffering and then a Hindu composer called it divisive, imagine the response. It would be condemned as communal, casteist, dismissive of Muslim pain. But when a Muslim composer dismisses Maratha suffering as divisive content, we are supposed to be understanding. Rahman has been celebrated by Hindu audiences for decades. His music for Roja, Bombay, Lagan, Rang De Basanti. Who bought these albums? Who attended attended his concerts, who gave him India's highest civilian honors, overwhelmingly Hindu audiences. When they want Sambhaji Maharaj's story told, Rahman calls it cashing in on divisiveness. The double standard is glaring. If Muslims can feel bad seeing Mughal invaders shown badly in films, Hindus can feel bad that an artist they have supported calls their history divisive content. This isn't about majoritarianism. This isn't about Rahman not getting work due to bias. He's working on Ramayana with Hans Zimmer. He's getting plenty of work. This is about dismissing historical truth as divisive when it depicts suffering inflicted by rulers who happen to be Muslim. Critics say using Subhanallah and Alhamdulillah during violent scenes create negative associations with Islam, but Aurangzeb's forces did invoke religious authority for their violence. That's historical fact. When the Mughals destroyed temples, they did so with religious justification. When they imposed jizya, it was explicitly Islamic law applied to non-Muslims. When they tortured Sambhaji, they demanded his conversion to Islam. Religion wasn't incidental to Aurangzeb's political agenda, it was central. His goal was conversion. His justification was Islamic law as he interpreted it. Depicting this isn't creating false associations. It's showing what actually happened. And we have precedent for this in global cinema. Take Ridley Scott's Kingdom of Heaven, a film about the Crusades depicting Christians and Muslims in 12th century Jerusalem. The film shows Christian crusaders invoking God while committing atrocities. It shows Reynald of Castilian, a Christian lord, attacking Muslim caravans and proclaiming religious justification. It depicts the siege of Jerusalem with both sides invoking their respective gods during battle. Muslim characters including Saladin are shown praying before and during warfare. Christian characters invoke Christ while killing. This isn't considered anti-Christian or anti-Muslim. It's considered historically accurate depiction of religious warfare. Nobody accused Ridley Scott of being divisive for showing Christians committing violence in God's name. Nobody said he was cashing in on religious tensions because everyone understands this is how religious warfare worked historically. Similarly, The Last Samurai, Braveheart, Apocalypto all show historical violence with cultural and religious context. Warriors invoke their gods, their traditions, their beliefs while fighting. That's not propaganda, that's period accuracy. So why the different standard for Chhaava? Should filmmakers lie? Should they show Aurangzeb's forces destroying temples while chanting secular slogans? Should they erase the religious component of religious persecution? That would be historical revisionism, the kind that erases what was actually done to Hindu and Sikh populations under Aurangzeb's rule. The uncomfortable truth: Aurangzeb used Islam as justification for political violence and forced conversion. Showing this isn't anti-Muslim, it's historically accurate. Just as Kingdom of Heaven, showing Christian crusaders invoking God during massacres, is historically accurate. And if present-day Muslims find this uncomfortable, I understand. But the solution isn't to call films depicting this history divisive. The solution is to acknowledge, yes, this happened, and we condemn it. Just as Christians condemned the Crusades depicted in Kingdom of Heaven, and just as Hindus condemn caste atrocities depicted in films like Article 15. I haven't watched Chhaava. I can't comment on its artistic merit, but I don't need to watch it to know this. Marathi people whose ancestors were tortured, whose king was executed, whose temples were destroyed, don't deserve to have their history called divisive by someone who took money to score their story. That's the real controversy. Not Rahman's religion, not bias against him, but that he dismissed historical trauma as cash grab divisiveness. Historical truth matters more than comfortable lies.